Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
Journey through the darkest shadows. Hard talk on the Spookshow airwaves, raising goosebumps with every word they say. And it feels to be movie thrills. The all-never-American Spookshow gives me chills. Take us on a journey through the darkest shadows. Journey through the darkest shadows. Hard talk on the Spookshow airwaves, raising goosebumps with every word they say. And it feels to be movie thrills. The all-American Spookshow gives me chills. They take us on a journey through the darkest shadows. Hard talk on the Spookshow airwaves.
Hello, welcome to another edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh, and I'm joined here with Tiana.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
Will and Donnie could not be with us, but we're finally, we survived the summer. We survived the sucky summer. Now, the heat and everything outside still suggests that it's fucking summer, right? But as far as the summer here proper on the Spook Show, our big summer event, the Sucky Summer, has finally come to an end. So if you missed last week's episode, we basically just kind of went through all the highlights, lowlights, and everything in between of what happened this past summer, and we put it in the history book. So who knows when we'll ever get back around to another vampire theme, but trust me, we left 1,000 vampire movies on the table. So we could just turn this into the All-American Vampire podcast and still probably go for years, right? So there's tons of vampire flicks to be seen, and I'm sure, you know, we'll get back around to some sooner rather than later. But now we're back to, like we say, regularly scheduled programming, and it brings us to the latest in our rotation. Now, the way we do our rotation is older and newer, older being 1999 and back, and then newer being 2000 to present. And it was Tiana's choice in the rotation, and you had to pick an older movie. So what did you bring for us this week, Tiana?
I brought the Slumber Party Massacre from 1982.
In a lot of ways, I mean, it's very different, but very similar and the same of the slasher genre of the time, right? So, and we'll get into a lot of the ins and outs of that here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to remind you to go check out aaspookshow.com. From there, you can listen to all of our past podcast archives, which now we sit at 225 episodes. So I think there was a bonus episode in there somewhere or so. So like there's actually maybe one or two more than 225 in our past archives. So all those are available there. And you can also find our YouTube channel from there, where every month we have 3 rotating series. Grindhouse Gutter, where we talk about movies that would have played in the grindhouses, drive-ins, and, you know, the B movies of the, say, all the way back to the 60s to sometime in the 80s, right? And then we do Video Vortex, which is kind of, we pick up in the 80s there with late 70s, early 80s, all the way into the late 90s of the video store rental days, that type of fare. And then we do Hammer, Horror, and Order, where we talk about the Hammer Films horror and thriller library in the order that they were released. So lots of cool stuff over on our YouTube channel. And of course, every month we have new content over on our Patreon, and you can become a patron by going to patreon.com/aaspookshow. If you become a member at I believe it's the main event, the $5 level is the one you want, because if you do that at the least, you will get every month video minisodes, including the Library of the Professor, and you also get Crapster Piece Theater, which that's always fun for some people, horrible for others, right? Every month we have to watch a piece of crap movie and talk about that. So I think we're up to, what about the 30th? We're up to the 30th Crapster Piece, which actually comes out later this month. So we've had quite a run with old Crapster Piece Theater, and you can listen to all those by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/aaspookshow. So without any further talking, let's just go ahead and toss to the trailer for the Slumber Party Massacre.
The basketball team is planning a party. A
Slumber Party. The party begins at 8 o'clock.
Love it too. You think I'm getting better?
But be on the lookout for an uninvited guest.
Please, please.
When the pizza arrives, things really start jumping. Some people may have to leave early. But others will hang around and hang around.
You're underage. Negative. Let's go.
I'm not going to eat the dead guy's pizza.
I feel better already. Really, I do.
But for those who stay, there'll be plenty of surprises. And non-stop action. One thing's for sure, no one's getting any sleep the night of the Slumber Party Massacre. Close your eyes for a second and sleep forever.
All right, that's the trailer for that. Now, I actually watched this not long ago. I mean, I watched it again for this just because I want to say I'd watched it earlier. It was either late last year or earlier this year, so it hasn't been too awfully long ago that I'd seen it. And, of course, I'd seen it a time or two before that, years and years ago. So this one was a little bit more fresh for me. Smoke, what about you? How often have you seen this one?
It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Actually, I don't remember. Might have seen it once in the early. I mean, not the first time. The first time I saw it back in the '80s, but probably only saw it once back then, and then maybe again in the late '90s, early 2000s, maybe ish, somewhere in there, and then this time. So probably only seen it 3 times. I would say for me.
Tiana, what about you? Is this an old favorite?
Yep. It's been a while since I watched it, though.
Now, they did make, I guess, technically like 2 more sequels, and there was a 4th that came out in 2021. So you've got, in 1987, Slumber Party Massacre 2, and then in 1990, you've got Slumber Party Massacre 3, and then there was Slumber Party Massacre, which came out in 2021, which is kind of, they describe it as a modern reimagining of a standalone sequel to the original 1982 film, the one that we're talking about today. I haven't seen that one, so I don't know good or bad, indifferent. I'm not sure yet. I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll get to it. That makes it a little bit more interesting to me as far as like that it sounds like it does have some connection to this movie. So, you know, I guess we'll see at some point. But have you seen the other 2, like part 2 and part 3?
Yep.
And
It's been a little while for those too, but I remember the second one being a lot more sillier than this one was.
Yeah, I think that one's a little bit more over the top with like the kind of the heavy metal, like 80s heavy metal type thing going on with the
yeah.
With the guitar drill.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
And don't they just straight up call him well, maybe I'm thinking of another movie. There's the Driller Killer, right?
There's a Driller Killer movie, but
because it's not.
I mean,
spoiler
referred to
alert,
him in part 2 as a Driller Killer as well, though, right? In the second one,
I believe so, but it's been a while since I've seen that one. But
yeah,
spoiler
it's been
alert.
even longer since I've seen that one.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We know that it's not this guy, right? And even in this one, they don't have like a name for him. You know, like he's not the Driller Killer or, you know, Jason McFang Face or something like that. He's just his name is just like Russ Thorne.
Yeah,
and that's it.
He's just some lunatic from the asylum.
You know, Smoke, in a lot of ways, it really kind of reminds me of, oh, Lord, now I'm completely blanking, Home Sweet Home.
Oh.
I can see some similarities there, right? Like, in the sense of, like, it's just a dude that got out of the nut house, and he's on a rampage for no particular reason.
True, yeah. You could say that.
It's not like Jason or Freddy where it seems like there's more there. Like, there's no deep story here. This is pretty simple. It's just a dude that killed a bunch of people in, what did they say, 1969? And now he has gotten out and he's killing people again. And for whatever reason, he is honed in on this group of teenage girls.
Yep.
10 or 12-inch drill.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Believe me, drills are going to be a big theme today when we're when we're diving into this movie, because that's his main weapon of choice, right? Is this massive fucking like concrete drill. What kind of drill is that anyways?
I get, like you said, an industrial drill of some sort. I mean,
it's hardcore. It's, you know.
Yeah.
This isn't like a, you know, if you think drill, you're thinking like something you would pop a hole in sheetrock with, you know, for like to hang your pictures or something. No, this is like a fucking concrete drill, you know, that's about 6 inches wide.
Yeah, well, that's definitely like what I alluded to and what you just alluded to is definitely the feminist aspect, I guess, of this thing of the whole. There's a whole lot of Freudian stuff going on. You know,
and so you know, yes, subtle. There are subtle things, but there are some very not so subtle things here.
Yeah.
Even just the what would you call it? The camera angles and stuff where the dude's got the drill.
Yeah.
Like I remember one shot in particular where the girl's like on the ground begging for her life, please, and he's got the drill down between his legs.
Yeah.
Hanging
it's the
down.
poster too. Anybody, you may not have even seen the movie, but if you've seen the poster, you've seen that scene pretty much.
Yeah. Except in the poster, I think there's like 3 or 4 girls, but in that one, but it's essentially the same thing. Like it's like the angle where he's got it hanging there and he's coming toward him with the drill. Okay, we get it. You know.
But I think that's the only reason why. I mean, it's overkill if you're talking about like because we already mentioned the driller killer from the 70. I forget exactly what year, 70 something, late 70s or mid 70s, whatever the case. And he just used, of course, a regular drill because that movie wasn't trying to be necessarily, you know, symbolic of anything or whatever. And I think that's the only reason why they used the bigger drill in this movie was the symbolism.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Yeah. It was directed by Amy Holden Jones. And it was written by her and Rita Mae Brown. Now, I had seen something where apparently Rita Mae Brown is a feminist writer. So it's pretty clear this is like, you know, but like in some ways that's good. That it's an interesting spin on things because you know of what was going on at the time. These type of movies were very popular, right? Like by 1982, you're in the heyday or approaching the heyday of these type of movies, right?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it's kind of a fresh take on things because you've got a mostly female-oriented thing going on here, right? Like, because you got a female director, female writers, mostly female cast, except for a couple of the boyfriends that roll in, and then the killer himself, right? So in that regard, it's a little different, but, you know, and they're trying to say something, and I believe I saw somewhere where it was actually originally supposed to be a parody of slasher movies, that just pretty much just ends up being a straightforward slasher movie, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's some, it takes something that could have been like, okay, well, fuck, we've seen this 1,000 times. And I think in the end we have, but you know, once you learn a little bit more about what they were trying to go for here, you can read a little bit more between the lines and you get a little bit of a different view, I think, of this genre with this one, I think.
Also, I think worth noting too here is, and I don't know, we haven't seen, like I said, none of us have seen the remake yet.
No.
But without getting too deep in the weeds on various political things, because we don't really go down that, you know, down that line for the podcast. But this is an example of something that's like you got feminist writers writing this and doing stuff, but it's something that it's parody, but you can see the symbolism and things that are going on in it. But there's nothing that you can still enjoy this movie for a fun, entertaining horror movie, slasher film, or whatever.
Yeah. Even if you had no idea about the background, if you had no idea, okay, she's a feminist writer, it's an all-female crew and everything like that, you wouldn't know it, you know?
No. Unlike, like I said, I haven't seen the remake. I don't even know what year it was made, but I don't want to assume anything about it. But let's say if you have those very obvious things and you put it out on Front Street with all these feminist writers writing this, and we're gonna make this new movie, put it out there, you get beat over the head with things.
Yeah.
To where it's like, you know, not subtle at all, and it sometimes can make you lose your enjoyment of it. So at least like back in the 80s and I guess in the 90s too, and so when they would do these types of movies, they weren't necessarily browbeating everybody with everything. They were just still making them for entertainment, but there's also this other symbolism things there if you want to see or go deeper into the meanings of that if you wanted to, you know. So.
Yeah, because I think armed with that knowledge, when you're watching this, it's very obvious, like the drill, you know, even towards the end with the machete and her lopping the end of the drill off, you know, all these things, right? It's pretty clear.
Yeah. And another similar in that it's a horror movie and it's kind of has a feminist slant to it, but very much more grueling would be I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
that's a more serious movie of
Yeah.
some fucked up shit going on, and what's done to resolve that and take care of that later in the movie versus this. The difference between a sort of mean-spirited grindhouse type flick, nasty, we've talked about it before. The difference between a fun splatter movie, horror movie, and then one that crosses lines and boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That makes you feel kind of gritty. Those types of grindhouse movies that grab you like that, like Cannibal Holocaust. Not that I Spit in Your Grave. It's quite that, over the top as Cannibal Holocaust, but it's sort of in that extreme grindhouse thing, and it's sort of a feminist horror movie. Whereas this one is also, but it's way more fun. It's not like trying to be too serious about the violent aspects of it. It's more of a, the silly sort of splatter gore stuff. Parody, like you said, it was supposed to be a parody. You can kind of see the parody aspects in some of the slasher kills in this movie.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't like beat you about the face and ears. It's just there, and if you want to look for it, it's there, pretty obvious. But if you don't, you could still move on and just enjoy it for what it is. Yeah. But this is, of course, if you've ever seen it, this is rated R. Total runtime of 1 hour and 17 minutes. So you got my vote right there. I love that's a good runtime for me.
Yeah,
that you get in, get out. Yep. It was released in Canada January 1st of 1982, and then randomly played in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in March 12th of 1982. But I don't think it got what you would call a wide release until November 12th of 1982 here in the United States, and then opened up in various countries after that. But it was done for a budget of only $220,000, which is crazy. But you can see it, right? You can see that this is pretty low budget. I think it looks great and it's done well, but you can tell there's no budget here, right? That being said, success, because it went on to a box office of $3.6 million. So on that little of a budget to make that much, not bad. And it's probably not one that got a massively wide release either, just knowing how things were playing at the time.
Yeah.
For 1982, not bad at all. Because how many Jason movies had come out by this point? At least 2, maybe 3 by this point?
1982, yeah, 2, yeah, because they were kind of going for a while by year, Well, the first one was 1980, and then the second one took a little while to come out. Was it 82?
Yes.
And then 83, and then 84, and then 85. So for a while, they were following the year up to a certain point. That's how I remember the Friday the 13th franchise, usually when I'm trying to think of which one came out what year.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, you're right in the wheelhouse of these type of movies. There's a ton of them. And you're at the beginning of the VHS video rental days, right? 1982. It's a thing, but it's still in its infant stages, right? So this was probably one that got rented a ton. So it probably went on to make even more money than that box office number, right? Just in video rentals.
But yeah, just on rentals and throughout the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you see that poster. You see that poster or that box art for this. Yeah, back in the video rental days. Yeah, you're watching this one. Because I was taking notes as we were going along. It took 2 minutes until you got your first gratuitous boob shot, and then it took 7 minutes before you got the big shower scene where there's just TNA everywhere. Right. So 7 minutes, 7 minutes, you met all your criterias right there for the, the early 80s slasher flicks. The funny thing is there's not, we'll get into it here in a second. There's not much after that. It's almost like, all right, let's get this out of the way now. We have to have the TNA, we got to throw it in there. Let's get it out of the way in the first 10 minutes, and then we'll barely show any of the rest of the movie. There's a little bit, but not much.
Yeah. For
a movie called The Slumber Party Massacre, I think you were kind of expecting a little more. I mean, you get plenty, but maybe more. But, an acceptable level, I guess.
Yeah.
What is it? Hey, why, it's Buttercup. Popcorn, add some butter to hot popcorn. Mix it up, wrap it up, Buttercup is born. It's delicious.
So nutritious.
It's a taste delight. It's so munchy,
crisp and crunchy.
You'll enjoy each bite. Eat butter-drenched Buttercup, popcorn at its best.
Served in a king-size cup.
It beats all the rest.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I hopped on over to audible.com and I just typed in Slumber Party to see what would pop up. And a good handful of things. I got 31 results, so it's not quite as much as I thought would pop up, but we've got some stuff. We've got The Slumber Party by Shannon Hollinger. That one is just under 10 hours long. Smoke, this sounds like it's for you. Slumber, a young adult dystopian novel by J.L. Weil. That one is Beauty Never Dies Chronicles, Book 1. So it's the beginning of several, I suppose. Just under 9 hours long.
Somebody sleeping. It's just Z's. It's just the whole novel is 500 pages of Z's. Yeah.
No, you forgot that it says the end at the end of it.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, they had to do that. We've also got, just because it popped up here, I'll say it. Stories Too Scary for Children. Spooky short stories for campfires and slumber parties for kids ages 8 and up by Jules Fox. And that one's about 2.5 hours long. So, like I said, I got about 31 results just by typing in slumber party. And we've proven it time and time again. You can type in just about anything and find at least a few books or something on Audible that will fit the description of what you're looking for. So if you want to go check it out, get your free audiobook today, go over to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobooks. And now let me hop back over to IMDb and click on plot summary. See if we got any good ones here. Okay, yeah, we've got a few. Nothing major league long, but we'll read these. The short one, a female high school student slumber party turns into a bloodbath as a newly escaped psychotic serial killer wielding a power drill prowls her neighborhood. The next one, the longer one, was submitted by Ed Sutton on IMDb. An 18-year-old high school girl is left at home by her parents, and she decides to have a slumber party. There is friction between some of the invited guests and the new girl, who is better at basketball than they, so the new girl decides to stay at home, which is conveniently across the street from the host's house. Meanwhile, a murderer of 5 people with a propensity for power tools has escaped and is at large, and eventually makes his way to the party, where the guests begin experiencing an attrition problem with only the new girl to help them. That's a funny way of putting it. And then the last one is our old friend Claudio Carvola over on IMDb submitted this. After the training of the high school girls basketball team, a group of players schedule a slumber party. Most of the girls agrees to go to the party. Meanwhile, the serial killer Russ Thorne escapes from prison and comes to the school with a drilling machine in the beginning of his crime spree. See, that pretty much lays it out. Like we said, this is a pretty generic plot line. Dude, killed a bunch of people. He gets out and he comes through and just decides to randomly target this group of girls who are having the slumber party. So that's the pretty simple, basic outline of what's going on here. But there are some other subplot things, like, the relationships, the character building between these girls and stuff like that, right? But for the most part, it's pretty simple. It's just an excuse to get to the killing, right?
Yeah.
I think you start right at the beginning. So, like I said, it takes you about 2 minutes to get to the gratuitous boob shot, right? Like, that's pretty much right off the gate. But right after that, there's a lady that's at the school who's a phone worker or something, and there's some guys like kind of, trying to hit on her and stuff like that. And then like she walks up to her work van as they walk past her. And then the serial killer Russ, he just snatches her in there and just kills her. And I think she got drilled in the van, Smoke. She got drilled in the back of the van.
Oh, that old maneuver, huh?
Yeah. Just grab them when they're not suspecting it and go to town. Just drill her. That's what happened. But that's literally how this movie goes, right? You're going to hear that a lot. Girls getting drilled in various positions in various places, all over the place in this movie. And that's not.
The feminism look very different in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that is the funny part of it. Like, I wonder what the critical response of the time was, right?
I mean, other than the symbolism, it's not like when you think about, when you hear two feminist writer and director, whatever, are making a horror movie or a slasher movie, you think, well, they're going to browbeat everybody for liking this type of movie or whatever, that they're going to, that they're going to put, but basically they just make a slasher movie, but with just this, like I said, Freudian symbolism and stuff in it. They aren't really, there is a statement there, I guess. It's like misogyny, the power drill being sort of an extension of his, whatever, and all this stuff.
And in the end, they didn't need they didn't need a man to save them, right? They did it themselves.
Yeah, you have that. Whereas, like I said, we haven't seen the remake, and I don't even know if they lean into it at all. They might not even be. They might have just not even went down that route with the remake. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that would just be if you did a modern version of that movie and you did try and make it go down a certain political path with it or whatever, it would definitely be different today than it was then. I think.
You would think.
I don't think I'd want you to enjoy it as a slasher horror movie, but in that sense.
Who knows? Next week on the Spook Show, we're going to be watching. Now we have to watch the 2021 version. We have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I am kind of curious to see where they go. Where they, do they go further down that path, or do they just? I mean, I can't see them just totally getting rid of it because that's kind of what the movie has been touted as a feminist horror movie. Sort of. I mean,
but I think it would be interesting to go back and look at what the critical response is of the time, because you'd have to think they wouldn't look at this like that. You know what I mean? Like, because if you just sit here and watch that without that knowledge, like we said, you'd be like, well, this is just another stupid, goofy, over the top, slasher flick of the time. So you have to wonder what lens were they looking at this, as the critics I'm talking about back then,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with all the knowledge they would have, I guess, of who the writer and the director was and all that, I guess they would be putting, but like, I'd love to see Siskel and Ebert have done actually, though, this movie is probably a response to some of that stuff going on a few years earlier with not even so much the Friday the 13th movies, but the more grittier slashers like Maniac and Pieces and those types of movies. Well, Pieces mine. Yeah, I think that was 81. Mm-hmm. So those have definitely been accused of more misogyny than your average Michael Myers or Freddy or Jason movie. So it might have been sort of an answer to that, because I know there was a huge stink when Maniac came out. There was a lot of feminist groups out there protesting that movie. Yeah. So because it's most of these slasher, not all of them, but a lot of the slasher movies, of course, has been accused of misogyny because mostly females are getting killed and they're in scantily clad in most various scenes or whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's sort of maybe but it's not a lashing out at that though, because it's still, this movie uses those same tropes to tell the story. So it's other than the ending where they don't need necessarily, but even the old slasher movies before this, it was still a final girl type thing.
I was about to say, it's almost always been a thing, like the final girl thing, right? It's like, I don't think they were breaking new ground here with that aspect of it, because it's almost every slasher flick of the time was almost generally, there's always the final girl. There's always one girl that manages to survive the night. Maybe there's a guy with her, and that's about it. But it's very rarely a guy is the last man standing.
Yeah,
if you think about it.
I mean, sometimes you might be both. Like you might have a guy and a girl that survives. Yeah. Generally, I mean, most times it's not. Most times it's just a one lone female survivor, which we get the final girl. In those
cases where there's like, say, a final girl and a final guy, usually it's the girl that saves the day.
Yeah.
In most cases. Right?
It wasn't breaking ground there necessarily. I guess it's just like the Freudian aspects.
I think it's the whole symbolism of the drill. Yeah, I think that's where they really leaned in. Yeah, because I did quickly find, as you were talking there, I quickly found one critic of the time. This was Janet Maslin of the New York Times. She wrote the usual cavalcade of corpses, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the movie, a woman who has miraculously survived the carnage breaks off his drill in half. That's feminism for you, a symbolism too. That's the only one that I could find that directly links the things together.
Oh, yeah. That was a very obvious.
Yeah. One thing that bothered me about it was when they're finally at the slumber party, and she makes Kool-Aid. That's the most chaotic Kool-Aid mixing I've seen since like fucking National Lampoon's Vacation. Where
the whole hands.
It's just the not measuring out the sugar thing that I think got me.
Yeah.
What the fuck's wrong with you psycho? She just opens up this massive pack of Kool-Aid and then just pours in just God knows how many cups of sugar. Just you got to measure that shit. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, because you got to get or like sweet tea. Us here in the South, exactly. I think everybody likes sweet tea now. It's not just a Southern thing anymore, I guess. But
yeah,
you got to get that right. You got to do the right amount of cups every time so that it comes out the right sweetness.
Too much or not enough, it's ruined.
Yeah,
and really, I mean, I'm joking, but Kool-Aid really kind of is the same way. It's like too much or not enough. It's just fucking horrible.
Yeah. There's that cusp right there, and that's it. You got to get in there, otherwise it's going to be too sour, or or way too sweet.
Now, the first girl that is caught, like he catches in the school, right after the phone lady in the parking lot, and he catches that girl in the school. It's Linda. That's her name. You don't see him kill her, but you just assume he kills her, right? Because like he's got her pinned up in the closet, and then he just drills a hole into the closet. She screams. Then he comes running out of the school. You don't see a corpse or anything. Like you don't see what he did to her. So
yeah.
I'm just, I'm helping you out, Tiana, for later for the kill count. Like, does that count? I don't know. You didn't fucking see it. And I don't think you ever saw her again that I remember. So.
He kills her because, I mean, he sliced her pretty good that she was gushing blood out.
Yeah. She's kind of like, remember the blood goes under the door or whatever. So maybe you can at least assume that. I guess. It was just weird how like, aha, she's in there. He just drilled a hole and then cut to him running out. So, okay, I guess he killed her. Fuck, I don't know.
And that to me was the goofy part, like him just running out.
Yeah. Like, what are you running for? Nobody knows you did anything. Like, just fucking calmly walk out. Yeah, nobody's wise here, so just fucking calmly walk out and go about your business, everybody.
And now it's like, why is that guy running like a maniac with her?
Yeah, now he's got that drill. Now I'm very suspicious. Smoke, this part was for you when she, the younger girl, which I can't remember her name, was it Courtney? I think was her name. The girl, Valerie, her sister, her younger sister. Which, by the way, they look like there's only about a year that splits them, but she acts like she's. she looks 17, but she's acting 12. I don't know what the fuck. But when she pulls out her copy of Playgirl with Sylvester Stallone on the cover, that was for you. Tiana, now I'm putting the pieces together. That's why you chose this movie, isn't it?
Yep, just for that part.
Yeah.
Now there's another, I guess, feminist aspect of it, because most of the time in these movies it's going to be the other way around. It's going to be some dudes going to have a playboy or a hustler or something.
Yeah, you're right. This is the odd moment where like the young girl is kind of a pervert.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you think about it, like she's kind of the pervert in this movie.
Because she's always asking about what are they doing? Are the boys over there?
Yeah. She's looking at Playgirl, not for the articles. She's talking about French kissing some dude. Like, she's the perv.
Like, look, it's the Italian stallion. He's like,
yeah, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Stallone on the cover of Playgirl. The neighbor, his name's Mr. Contant. I love where like he's just kind of hanging around because like they asked, her parents, they're out of town, so they asked him to kind of keep an eye on the girls or whatever. And his way of looking out for him is to just kind of creep around the house at all times and appear random. And then when she goes out to get wood for the fireplace and there's a snail on there, and then he comes and kills the snail with a butcher knife.
He's like, you got to do it that way.
Yeah, goddamn, dude, calm down. It's a fucking snail. It ain't going anywhere. But karma got him real quick because then like he's like going for another snail and then the fucking drill goes right through his neck.
Yeah.
So they take out Mr. Contant, but then there's just a death after death there. Diane, one of the girls that kind of sneaks out with her boyfriend. So you don't see it happen, but she leaves the car. I think like goes in and tells like the other girls like, all right, I'm about to go off with Joe here, whatever his name was. And then we're going to do our business and I'll be back. And then she gets back in the car and then the dude's fucking head falls off.
Yeah.
So we miss it happening, but at least we did get to see a decapitation, right?
Yeah.
But then she's immediately drilled. So there's another girl drilled in the car. You're taking count of how many girls got drilled in this movie. Another one that happens that we don't see happen. At least I don't remember. I don't think we did see it happen. The pizza delivery guy that shows up.
Oh yeah.
You just see his corpse with his eyes drilled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think
that was.
I don't think you saw it though, right? Unless that was just a moment where I stepped out.
They opened.
Yeah, they opened the door. And there's
finally, everything starts happening.
Oh, I love that.
And they're like, shit.
That was one thing they kind of stopped short on in this movie that you saw in a lot of 80s slasher movies was the bodies stacked up reveal. Right? We've talked about this before where there's always like that moment somewhere where like, You open up the cupboard, a body falls out, and then all of a sudden somebody falls from the ceiling, and then all of a sudden somebody comes out of the cabinet, whatever the fuck, right? Like that kind of that kind of happens a little bit here, but it's not like that big reveal scene of fuck, you know.
Yeah.
Because if somebody had went and checked the trunk of that car, oh shit.
Oh yeah. And I love how he like sits there and counts.
Yeah, he's like 1. And I think he's mad that there's not 5 because remember they keep pointing out that like he killed 5.
Oh yeah.
Back
the one guy escapes.
So I guess that's part of his motivation here. He's got to get. Although he kills way more than 5, but for whatever reason he's obsessed with 5 here. Because the other 2 boys that had showed up at the slumber party, Jeff and Neil, they get taken out, and then Jackie, one of the girls, she's the black girl that's there at the slumber party. She just opens up the door and gets her throat slit by the. She's just like, I got to go out there, and it could be Neil or whoever she's looking for. And then slash, she falls out dead. He stabs. This was one of the rare. He didn't drill her. He stabs Kim in the gut. She's dead, and then stuffs her in the fridge. Which I love. You know, talk about comic relief. I love that when the younger girl, Courtney, I think was her name, whatever, she comes in like, can I get a beer? No, you're not getting a beer. You're too young. And she keeps opening and closing the door, and then the body's like...
Yeah, that gag effect there, yeah.
Then eventually it's like, fuck it, I'm getting the beer, and she opens it, and the body files out now, you know, now that she's up, like she knows what's going on. But the coach. So this whole time, kind of during all this, they keep calling the coach to talk to her, and then eventually she knows something's going on. So she's like, you know, I need to go check on the girls. So Coach Janet goes to the house, and in typical horror movie, hey, the person's here to save me, and then immediate death. Because Trish comes in and stabs him, and then during all that melee, Coach Janet gets disemboweled with the drill. Like he just catches her right in the gut and disembowels her with the drill. Then you finally come down to the final battle of Valerie finds a machete and comes charging at him, and they kind of go back and forth a little bit, and then she cuts off his hand. I think she kind of guts him, right? Like kind of slashes him across the gut. Yeah. And then he falls into the pool. All right, fuck, he's dead. Thank God. And then of course, you know, he comes jumping out of the pool, but then she finally gets him with the machete, like runs him through the end. So you actually get a few final girls here. It's not just one, right? There was 3 or I think at least 3 of them, maybe 4 that survived the night. So there you go. The Slumber Party Massacre. I think it's a good choice, Tiana, as far as like now that we're out of the Sucky Summer, but it's still kind of summer related in a way, right? in some way, like a slumber party kind of reminds you of the summer. So, and going back to school and everything, because now the kids are starting to go back to school. So good choice. If for nothing than time period correctiveness.
Yeah.
So yeah, since you brought it to the table, we'll let you go first. What are your final thoughts and what's your star rating on it?
This is the first time I've watched it in like a while, so I just forgot how good it was. Definitely 80s, that 80s, early 80s feel. And I feel like even though it was meant to be, you know, kind of campy, I feel like it wasn't.
No.
It didn't go to that far.
No, there's some moments in there, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not.
There's moments, but yeah, I think it's very well done. And even with not so much money behind it, whatever, I'm sure if they had more money, the kills would have been a lot more gruesome or whatever. But I think it's done good. Mm-hmm. And there's that little bit of creepy parts too, where he's like coming into the window when the 2 girls are in the bedroom and they have the door blocked and all. And then the one part I love in this movie is when the black girl grabs the pizza and says that she's hungry, and she eats it right on top of the dead body.
She's like, well, fuck, you gotta eat, right?
Yeah. But I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
All right, fair enough. Professor, what do you say?
Yeah, I enjoy it for what it is, 80s slasher movie with although it doesn't. I don't know if that's because they were money wise, maybe. I know it's got its gore in it, but it's not. I think the second one's even gorier than this one. I think. Yeah. Overall, it's probably just a budget thing. They did what they could, I guess, Although there was a lot of off-screen kills. Did you see the aftermath of, like, they're talking about the decapitated guy or the drill where he goes running out the house, right? Or some of those kills that were sort of off-screen or whatever. But yeah, I think it's fun and it's entertaining, and those comedic elements we talked about are there. Like, you could see the parody. You could see where they were going with it originally, maybe with the more leaning into that parody stuff more, and then but it doesn't fully go into that because as we said, they decided to make a regular slasher movie out of it, basically. So killer, maybe that was one of the statements they were trying to make. They didn't want to make the killer. That's probably part of the feminist aspect. Maybe they didn't want to make him a cool killer. They didn't want a mask, another, because people are rooting oftentimes for Michael and Jason. That was one of the issues that parents groups and things got on slasher movies about. One of the reasons why there was a crackdown on gore is because people were rooting for the killers, basically, and certain groups didn't want that to be happening. So but you don't have that in this movie. He's just a standard normal guy, kind of, sort of. He's got a little creepy look, but he doesn't have a mask, or he's not like big, huge guy, whatever. So they kind of make him as standard as they can to maybe then, like I said, that's probably playing into maybe the feminist aspect of it or whatever. So yeah, you don't get a really cool killer. And I don't know if we mentioned it in the podcast. We talked about it before, but he looks a little bit like Fuad Ramses from Blood Feast.
Yeah.
More than like Fuad Ramses. I guess that's a coincidence, probably.
Just his face and his
face. Yeah, the way he's kind of acting. I don't know if that's like, I don't know who this actor was necessarily, what he had done before, but it's like maybe they said, like, hey, I've seen this movie Blood Feast before. I'm just going to do that.
Do you mind going? Do you mind going for Blood Feast? Sure, why
not? Have you ever had an Egyptian blood feast?
That's how they posed it. They asked him that straight up.
Yeah.
But that's another part that I love too. Was he hardly had any dialogue? I don't think you hear him speak until he's counting for the trunk.
I think,
and then not till toward the end, he's like, because she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he goes, "Because you're pretty."
Yeah. I love
and you. Love it.
Yeah. Don't you like it? I love you. Yeah, he's full on nut. But it is creepy. You're right. Yeah, it's like it's creepy because you don't really hear him say anything, and then when he finally does, it's straight up fucking crazy.
But yeah, no, I enjoy it for what it is. It's definitely not going to climb into the top of my favorite slashers from the '80s list or anything, but it is enjoyable. I guess I'll go 2.25 on it.
And that's exactly where I am, 2.25, because I think it's a solid '80s, early '80s slasher flick.
Yeah.
But they're not really breaking any new ground. But not every movie has to. So I'm not necessarily holding that against it. It's just that there's no mystery here or anything like that, because they reveal pretty quick who the fucking killer is, right?
Yeah.
There's no MacGuffin or anything like that where you're like, no red herring, however you want to put it, where there's, you think it's one guy and then it's another. No, like you pretty much know straight up from the get-go who it is, and you just don't know exactly what his motivation is other than crazy, and that's really all you get. So, yeah, but I think it's a solid made flick, and it still looks really good, too. Like, the version I watched, at least, I don't remember where I watched it. It was one of the streaming services. Maybe it was some type of restoration or something, I don't know, but it looked really good. Like, the look of it held up pretty well. The special effects aren't, like, top-notch, but they're good enough for 1982, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We have the, I think the 3-pack set on Blu-ray.
Yeah, so maybe that might have been the same one that I watched. I'm not sure which transfer, but it looked good to me.
Yeah.
Well made. So, yeah, I mean, it's a solid flick, just not one, like you said, Smoke. It's probably not going to creep up on my top 10 80s slasher flicks, but, not far off it. It might be top 30, somewhere around there, if I'm looking at a ranking sheet. I don't know, as far as 80 slasher flicks go. It's not horrible. Not one you're going to revisit all the time, but pretty solid. So, yeah, I say 2.25 as well.
Better than the one that we mentioned earlier that we kind of compared a little bit to, which was Home Sweet Home.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm kind of quickly going back here a little bit, just looking at the list. It's been a while since we've watched anything that you would kind of consider an 80s slasher flick, because we watched Phantasm 2. That's not really a slasher. I mean, there's some elements to it, but it's not really a slasher flick.
Yeah, it's more supernatural horror, right?
Yeah, man, you got to go all the way back to episode 191, I think. Don't Open Till Christmas in 1984. And that might have been the last, like, pure 80s slasher flick that we've watched here for the show. Other than, like, maybe some YouTube stuff that we've done. But, yeah, so it's been a minute. So, yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, and I think we all agree. So, overall, we give it 2.3 out of 5 stars. So, it's not top flight, but you'll have a good time, if you like 80s slasher flicks, I think you'll really love this one if you've never seen it before. So, so Donnie wasn't able to join us, but he did send in his thoughts and his rating. So I'll go ahead and toss to that now.
Yeah, I mean, aside from this movie, kind of sucks, man. Aside from the nice pair here and there, I'm at 2 stars. It just doesn't have enough meat for me to even consider watching it again. But it's also not the worst thing I've seen either. So yeah, I'm ready at 2 stars.
All right, there you go. That's that. So Donnie is not here to give his crypt connections, but he did send it in. So here it is now.
Connections from the crypt.
All right, there's old laughing boy. So go for it.
All right. So with Crypt Connections, we connect the current movie episode by any cast or crew connections to past Spookshow episodes. So for the Slumber Party Massacre, on the cast side, we have, and you'll appreciate this, Josh. On the cast side, we've got Brink Stevens, who plays Linda. She was also in your favorite, Emmanuel 4, and she was also in Spinal Tap.
Boy, that's going from the anthill to the mountaintop.
Yeah, from the what do they call it? The poorhouse or the penthouse?
Yeah. More like the outhouse to the penthouse.
Yeah, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
But yeah, also on the crew side, we got makeup effects artist Mark Shostrom. He was also did makeup effects for Evil Dead 2, Videodrome, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Phantasm 2, all 4 episodes you can go check out in our archives.
All right, so Tiana, now that we have the connections, that naturally leads us to...
Kill. Count.
All right, so what number did you come up with? This should be a fairly interesting number.
Yeah, this one's a good body count. 12.
Sounds about right.
It was 11 for all the people he killed, and then himself.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. So I think that naturally leads us to... Let's talk about the kill reel.
Highlight. Kill.
This one is interesting. I guess probably the biggest, goriest one is Russ Thorne, the killer himself, getting taken out because he gets his hand chopped off. He gets slashed across the gut, comes back, and then gets run through. So that's probably the goriest one. I guess I'll go with that because some of the other ones that were probably better, you don't see on film. Like the boyfriend getting his head chopped off. You only see the head roll off. Or the pizza delivery guy with he gets both of his eyes drilled out. If we'd have seen that play out, that might have been the one, right? Because that probably would have looked gruesome, but they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'll go with the killer Russ Thorne getting whacked up there at the end with the machete. So that naturally leads us to you, Smoke.
Gore score.
Yeah, it's not going to take top notch honors for like super splattery, gory, 80s slasher movies, but it's got a fair share. As we'd mentioned, it was some of them were off screen, so you don't get that full effect, of it. But I think it was budgetary, probably, as far as the did what they could with what they had. But you do get some good kills, like we mentioned. The killer getting killed was definitely memorable. Got various girls getting drilled in cars and vans and things.
And not in the way you might like to see.
And the decapitation, but after the fact, it's like I said, I think the second one probably takes the cake as far as gore, and we'll get to that one at some point down the line. But for this one, I think I'm going to go with 5. I don't think it's not too it's not overly gory. Like I said, a lot of them are off screen and you see the aftermath, but the ones that are there are pretty juicy.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. So that is where we will leave the Slumber Party Massacre. gore score of 5, kill count of 12, and an overall score of 2.3 out of 5 stars. So we recommend you check it out, although it's probably not going to be the highest thing on your list. But I think if you like these type of movies, this is the kind of thing you'll like. So we'll leave it there. Next week, we return to the Cannon Fodder series. This is where we talk about a random movie pulled off of a wheel spin that were produced by Cannon Films, Golden Globus Productions, back, say, from the late 70s into the early to mid-90s. Anything from that time frame we could pull. And this is an interesting one because when we pulled it, we looked it up. It looks like Cannon had a hand in it, although it wasn't, like, say, directly produced by them or Golden Globus, but it was a Cannon Golden Globus production that I don't think they served as producers on. I think it's more of a Golden Harvest flick, and that's also the first time we're going to have a Jackie Chan flick here on the Spook Show, and we're going to be watching Armor of God. This is one that I have never seen, but just from the little clips that I saw of it, it looks like your typical 80s Jackie Chan comedic action flick. So I'm kind of looking forward to this one because I don't believe I've ever seen it, and we've never had a Jackie Chan flick, and they can be pretty funny, over-the-top action flicks, right?
Yeah, and that's like I'm excited for it because I don't think I've seen it either. But who would have thought that our first Jackie Chan movie would have been from the Go-Go Boys?
Yeah, right. They had some involvement, and I'm sure we'll get into that. And hopefully, we can have author of the Cannon Film Guide, Volume 1 and Volume 2, Austin Trunick, on with his Cannon Chronicles segment, so he can give us some background on how connected is this to Cannon? How much did they have? What was their involvement, or was this just a distribution kind of thing? So we'll dive into that next week. So for Donnie and Will, Tiana, the Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show, and we will talk to you next week for our latest Cannon Fodder.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.